historically, who's
This budget's a
Charge.
joint,
That's
it's a
what I
joint
thought.
budget between Amy and myself, and now Michael will be brought into it because he's going to be handling health insurance.
okay, this
So this-
budget, this is 10% of the town's budget.
Yes, and again, this is a total town budget. Again, it's health insurance for all employees in the town. The projected increase is about a 4%. However, the overall total increase is higher than that because we had to increase the number of employees. Well, if you remember last year, we came with some good news. Amy and I worked at reformatting this budget and actually taking a real apples-to-apples comparison from year to year.
We remember it pretty well.
Yes.
It saved
Yes.
the town $1,100,000
Well,
compared to projection.
We weren't able to come back
Bailed us
this year
out.
and do that, unfortunately, because we
But
We
you
did
can't
have
do it
some-
twice.
No, we did have some increases in the number of employees. So that increase resulted in about 319,000.
18,301.
Oh, 318. And then the projected increase for the health insurance for fiscal year 15 is about a 4%. Again, this is another budget that we come back to you after a period, usually about halfway through the year. When this budget is created, it's done in October, November, and we don't really have enough claim history for the year to really get a good projection. So we sit down with our consultant. We're scheduled to sit down with our consultant. I believe it's February 18th. And we're going to go over the claims because we'll now have a good 6 months' worth of claims for this fiscal year. And hopefully we can come back and with some good news and reduce the budget.
Okay, that'd be great. It would be very nice. Now, I understand, well, one question I have is, the consultant you have for the health insurance, this would be addressing Steve's concern. How long have we had that consultant? This is Cook and Company?
Cooking Company, we've had that consultant,
I guess a long time.
yeah, it's probably since 2004, maybe, 2005.
Mhm. And are they, do they have any competition?
Yeah, they do. There's other insurance companies out there
Great. So we can look forward to maybe a
bidding.
bid
Mhm.
process, especially when you get someone on your team that is responsible for that.
Mhm.
Hey, Michael?
Thanks. Does the town offer benefits for spouses or only for employees of the town?
No, they offer family plans.
Okay. Have you looked at requiring, I'm not talking about dependents, but some companies have moved to a plan that says if your spouse is employed somewhere that offers health insurance, you are not eligible to enroll your spouse in health insurance through the town, so, for example.
Oh, no.
That's something that's happening to a lot of companies right now. It happened to my company last year. This is our second year doing it. And we received a presentation that said that that's pretty much a trend. Where if your spouse is eligible for health insurance at any job, then they need to get health insurance at that company or somewhere else. But our employer is not going to offer you a family plan under that scenario. But if you have, dependents, of course you can cut. It's
Yes.
basically employee plus dependent plus spouse if your spouse does not have a job that offers health insurance.
That's
And that
interesting.
apparently created a significant amount of savings for my company last year.
I know there is a program out there that if your spouse has health insurance and you
Get a rebate.
yes, you can get a rebate if you go on your spouse's health insurance.
Right.
But I hadn't heard of this one.
Mhm.
We'll look into that.
I don't know, sounds like a race to the bottom to me.
It
you
kind
know,
of
which
is,
kind of what-
but everybody is apparently doing it, so.
Everybody is racing to the bottom.
Everybody's looking for ways to save on health insurance.
Well, it's a big number. I think one of the things that is helpful to understand about this is this last bit that you showed us on the 318,000 portion, which is attributable to the increase in number of employees enrolled in the plan. And this, I mean, the change in enrollment, I understand, can happen for any number of reasons, but basically, nobody gets off the plan, pretty much, right, if you're on, because this is also the plan that covers retirees, right?
Unless you're a teacher, a teacher goes into the state retirement system. But yes, all other employees.
Oh, okay, so, okay, so it's stunning to have 29 new ads if employment is generally level. So I think we need to, when we talk to the schools, Paul, we needed to ask them about
What-
these school numbers
Yeah.
on this list.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Just keep in mind, this doesn't mean they're new, it's turnover. And think about the nature of the school system and the teachers and instructional aides. Sometimes there's a lot of turnover. And you get one teacher that's retiring that wasn't on the health insurance, and you're hiring a new young teacher or somebody that is going to come on. So it's not necessarily that, I don't know the specifics of it, but it's, a lot of it's turnover through attrition, and they have had some retirements as well as the town. So you could have somebody that wasn't on it, and then you replace them when they leave, and that person elects coverage. Or it could go the other way, but unfortunately this year it didn't work in our favor. It could go the other way where
Right.
And it could be a life
change in
event too.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
change in family
Yeah.
Your
status.
spouse changed their job, you
If
moved
you're
to
single
this.
and then you get married or have
Right.
children, it
You have
can
a,
change the
yeah, you have a
numbers.
child,
Yeah.
you go from individual plan to family plan. So it's not, you can't look at it as
Employment.
they added that many people. A lot of it's through just
Through attrition.
natural turnover and.
Like the fire is, there were 2 retirements in the fire. The police, those are replacement positions, and the DPW are replacement positions. So it's not additional staff
Right,
numbers to
but
their department.
the schools are not just replacement positions, because retired school teachers drop out of this system. So it's a net increase of 11 teachers and 8 aides. Whereas the DPW and police and fire are not net increases, they're
They're
just
worse
gross
because
increases.
if they retire, they're still on, if they retire,
Right.
you're a town employee, you're still under the retirement, and then you get replaced, so you have,
Right,
you're
that's
still on
why,
it
that's why
plus
the
and
fire
then-
is a straight ad of 2
right.
for people who have retired
Right.
in that year. Whereas you could have had 10 teachers retire, and we're showing an 11 increase, which means maybe there were 21 new teachers jumped on, okay? So it would be nice to know how many, it'd be nice to know what that churn is, and, you know, what our policies are doing that creates that churn, or if that's typical. I don't know. Anyway, something to look into is, I mean, do you have those numbers?
What we do is we just call to get the enrollment numbers. So we wouldn't be able to give you the scenarios of if they're replacement, if they're new positions, or that would have to come from the schools.
Okay. All right. Phil, and then Chuck?
Lee Michael's idea has worked pretty well in the private sector, but I assume that to do it here, we'd require union negotiation to make the plan change, which may or may not happen. One of the things that towns were looking at 8 or 10 years ago, and I stopped following it at the time, was they were paying stipends to new employees to encourage them to select their spouse's coverage rather than the community's coverage. Have you looked at that at all to see whether that's working, whether towns are doing it?
That was the program I was
Because you
speaking
can
of
give someone
earlier,
a
but
pretty
I
good
don't.
stipend in lieu of a $10,000 family coverage in a health plan
Mm-hmm.
and save yourself quite a bit of money. And doing that.
Yeah, it's
That's an
something to-
HR kind of thing that you might want to
Yes,
look into.
it is something worth exploring, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely correct. To do something like what Lee Michael is talking about, it would require negotiations with all unions.
Chuck?
Speaking of negotiations, have you, I think you have looked at, but I just figured I'd ask anyway, have you considered moving the healthcare to the state's GIC? And could that be a source of savings?
We have, we looked at that a couple of years ago when we renegotiated to the 80-20 split, premium split. We used to be 85-15. And what we did is, instead of going into the GIC, we changed the premium split. And it really was pretty much the same type of a savings as we would have reached by going into the GIC.
That change of split led to probably 2 years where we didn't have to think about an override because of the savings. But now that's definitely under the bridge. So, yeah, sorry, Steve.
The follow-up question, is that still holding that the savings would be the same, or is it?
We haven't done that analysis.
I think that was kind of what you were getting.
Yeah.
Well,
We haven't done that
the GIC
analysis
is gonna,
this year.
they're gonna change their percentage, so I'm sure that's, I think it would be, I'm not an expert on negotiation, I think it would be easier to just have the state run it and not have to deal with it. Because they sometimes raise the percentage and you just have to deal with it if you're an employee. And I'm sure that's what's gonna happen at the state level this year. You might have guessed that I am in the GIC, so.
I wouldn't be surprised at some point if the town was to take that tract, but at this point in time, and due to the collective bargaining, which is confidential, at this time, that's not something that we would be looking into.
I'd encourage to follow the percentage split between the state and the town.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I presume that one of the conditions of winning a better split was that we couldn't hold GIC over their heads anymore. So, I don't know where you go from there. But yeah, if that's the trend, you know, again, it's too bad that the private sector's bad examples in some departments are what the public sector, you know, ends up being pressured into chasing. But anybody else on group insurance? No. Okay, now we're looking at a bill, law. And again, you might as well tell us how long we've had the
And
law
Steve's,
firm.
I was going to say, and Steve's comment is duly noted here as well, and I will bring it back to the selectmen.
Okay. So the retainer never comes back, Darnell.
Don't you
No,
dare.
that's it.
Working on things.
But the professional and special services, you know,
It fluctuates.
if we don't spend them, then they do come back. Disbursements and claims, sure thing. I'm just to start with the smallest item there, I'm just kind of stunned that there were no claims at all, or at least there were no claims paid in fiscal year 14. So No potholes, no nothing. That's great. We
Mhm.
must be doing something right, huh?
Well, we get right to them now that we have the pothole complaint line. You know, if someone hits, if Michael hits a pothole, and the town had no prior knowledge of it, then the town's not responsible to pay for that claim. If Michael hits the pothole, the town's notified that Michael hit the pothole, they don't do anything about it. Now I come along and I hit the pothole, and I break my tie rod, the town's responsible to pay my claim, because they had knowledge that there was a pothole on that street. So I think, again, this is, you know, kudos to your DPW department, because they're getting right on those pothole claims as they are notified of them.
Oh, speaking of DPW, I'm pretty impressed driving around town.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think they've
those
done
men
well,
and women
we ought to
deserve a
thank them.
lot of credit. I mean, the amount of snow that we've had is historic, and they have been working around the clock, and they deserve a lot of praise.
Yeah, we hope Joe will show up for his appointment with us.
Maybe a little sleepy, but hopefully he'll be here.
Anyway, no, I was just surprised there was, you know, a big zero there. I don't know, I mean, this is one of those budgets you can't really tell us much about.
No, you can't. I can give you where I am at through November for the professional services, which is your law, your special and your labor, and through November of 2014, it's $87,000 that's been expended.
Okay, so that's 5/12, that's roughly in keeping
Yeah, it's
with
pretty.
the budget.
Mhm.
Usually, often you have a balloon towards the end in May and June. I don't know if that's the law firms realize that they're at the end of our fiscal year, or if they, you know, and they need to catch their billing up. But it would probably be more related to cases in the wind that they're working on, and I don't know, and you can't tell us about them. So,
That's right.
so I guess, I guess because we'll have to think about the reserve fund in terms of things like snow and ice, are you confident that, or reasonably confident that we won't need a reserve fund transfer for law this year?
I think we have a lot of projects on our plate that involve town council's expertise, so I really can't answer that right now,
Okay, because
unfortunately.
before budget time, we could use a clue there, because if we need to set aside, you know, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 for additional law bills for this year,
Mhm.
we got to get it from somewhere. So if you can keep that in
I'll
mind.
keep monitoring it, and I will keep you abreast of where the bills are going.
Great. Any other observations on Phil?
Emery, at one time, expenditures for law were spread across 3 different town budgets.
Mhm.
Have we now consolidated everything on this one?
That's correct,
Right.
yes.
Wow. Mike?
I just have a question in general. How would you evaluate town council? What criteria would you use to see if you're doing it, you're getting a good bang for your buck?
That's a good question.
Thank you. I'm sitting there waiting to ask a good question.
That's a really good question.
Your work is done here.
My work is
How
done.
would I evaluate
I gotta
them?
wait
I
to
would-
listen to the answer.
I have a chair for you here.
I would evaluate the success of his cases. I would evaluate his advice to the Board of Selectmen when they're deliberating on how to make a decision with respect to a certain project. His timeliness of getting back to department heads who seek his expertise. it's,
A follow-up question would be, do we compare that to other towns? Like a batting average kind of, you know?
I never have. No, I never have. But that's a good question. Can do that.
Okay.
Can look at some other towns, see what they're, you know, who they're using for their law services and get a feel for what they're paying a year for their law services and compare.
Yeah, I'm not saying what number we should pay, really. I don't know. You know, it could be we have to pay more because we want them to do more for us.
Mhm. I do think the town has been well-served for the number of years that I've worked here, which is approaching 20, by Town Council John Flynn. I think he's master in his field. I think he's, the town has been well-served by his leadership with respect to law questions, negotiations, successful cases. Yeah, I think they've been well-served.
Okay, thanks.
Paul?
Just as a hypothetical, if you do start looking at, you know, Steve says, you're looking at other bids for this kind of
Mhm.
thing, how long has the current firm been employed by the town? Is it,
John Flynn's been town council, I think, since 1989.
was someone else in his firm town council before him, or did his firm come on board to the town with John?
I think John was hired in 1989 as town council, and I think prior to him it was Robert O'Leary, and he was not with John Flynn's firm.
And the only reason I'm asking this question is I would assume there would be some value to the town from the institutional memory that any law firm would have. And I just want to know, is there a point in time, is there anybody you can talk to who remembers the last time a transition was made, and you can evaluate what kind of difficulties, if any, that might have caused the town from the interruption of institutional memory going from one firm to another?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Betty.
Yeah,
Good question.
that is a good question.
I know, I remember. No, I mean,
Oh,
I
so
think.
you have the knowledge.
I do. I think Mr. Leary was a sole practitioner. He was not in a law firm. And I think that John's law firm represents a lot of municipalities in Massachusetts. I mean, I work for the town of Dedham, and that law firm represents Dedham and represents the schools as well. And it's very well thought of, and I think they have a real niche in municipal law. I'm not saying that there aren't others, but I think that they have a very good reputation. You know, I know John's been with the town for a long time, and I think people in general, I think he does a good job.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry if I can just follow up, just to tweak sort of Steve's point. I think with certain things, you know, yeah, you bid out to a different contractor in the same field. I would just say off the top of my head, insurance, to me, insurance, you just get the best policy you can
Yes.
get under, and it doesn't really, to a certain extent, it's not gonna make that much of a difference who you go to, although, I don't really know the intricacies of how the town deals with its insurance, and whether questions like institutional memory and other things come into play. But I think with law firm, I think that's sort of a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I agree.
Michael?
I was gonna say something like that, but also ask what you thought a good rule of thumb was for reviewing a contract, because I don't think each one needs to be done every year. It seems like different contracts will have a different horizon by which you wanna send it out to bid again.
Yeah, I think 5 years is a plenty sufficient
Mhm.
length of time, and, you know, I mean, I said it a couple times before, I mean no disparagement of who we have, but I also believe fully that there's a tendency, if you've got the contract locked up or seemingly so, that you're not necessarily
Slide
giving
with
the
it, yeah.
town the best financial return that could be done. And, you know, the present town council is not gonna be there forever either. Maybe a senior partner bills at a higher level. We could have some younger newer firm, much more hungry for the business and capable of doing the business, that comes in and knocks your socks off. So when they know that there's possible competition, you're gonna get the best value.
Yeah.
And you may still wind up saying, nope, you know, we've looked at all of the, you set up parameters, this is the services we want, who can give us those the best, and just say, okay, irrespective of the fact that we might save $30,000, these people are much more experienced and have a higher batting average on their cases, we'll stick with them, as opposed to just grabbing at the financial standings. But keeping the consultants on their toes is always a good idea.
I think we can all agree that constant reevaluation is probably a good thing.
And just
Any
to
of our
follow up on
endeavors.
that, we do go out, our stop loss insurance, we go out to bid every year, because we are self-insured, but we always go out to get the best bang for the buck on that. Our audit, that's a 3-year contract, I think this is our last year, so that we'll go out again on that.
We're getting there.
So we're getting there, yes. But I have to echo what Paul said very eloquently, that, you know, there's so much institutional knowledge, and I think one of the benefits of that is that there is turnover. You know, selectmen change, town administrators change, staff change, and to have a firm that has all that institutional knowledge can save you a lot of money as well, because they may have already done the work that someone asks to be done again.
We'll agree to disagree.
Okay.
Institutional knowledge is a little overrated sometimes.
Okay, well, let's find out about municipal audit, because that's next, alphabetically. And this is a comparatively much smaller budget. But nonetheless has some heft to it. They come out with an annual report, our auditors do, right?
Yes.
Could you make that available to the warrant committee?
It's on the website,
It's on the
town's
website?
website. The last several years are up there.
Okay, but this last one is up?
Mhm.
Okay, great, thank you. So, the main difference for fiscal year 16 is the inclusion of another $8,000 for the GASB 45 required audit of OPEB benefits or other post-employment benefits. And that's a 2-year, every other year requirement. And so I guess that's the main change here, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, this is,
This is mine.
that's yours?
The savings
Okay.
budget.
All right. Okay. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's a bill. And, okay, here's the breakdown. The basic audit is 58,000 and the GASB audit is 8,000. Last year the GASB was 7,250, but who knows? Now, that's basically what the narrative tells us. So, hey. Who is our audit firm?
Powers and Sullivan?
Powers and Sullivan. And you think you're putting it out to bid in the near future? Or
Well,
you
it's
just did?
fiscal 15 is the last year of a 3-year contract, so the audit of fiscal 15. The plan is to go out. I believe there's also an article in the warrant regarding the audit committee, which also addresses that they would, that article is kind of, I think, redefining the roles of the audit committee, and I believe there's something in there related to selecting auditors. I think that they would be tasked with that, with probably, hopefully, they would ask my opinion to assist with that, but, yeah. We've had Powers and Sullivan since I started in 2010. It did expire since I've been here, but it was, I believe it was, I've been here 4.5 years, so we're in the 3rd year now. So the feeling was that me being new, it wouldn't be a good time to change. So we extended the contract with the thought of going out to bid when it expired.
Probably was a sound decision. Anybody have any questions about the audit? I mean, I do know that there's, yeah, we haven't gotten there in terms of review, but we do have a new article on beefing up the audit committee and charging them, you know, with greater oversight than they had been before, and formalizing it in the bylaws of the town, which also hadn't been the situation beforehand. Is there anything you want to add, Phil, at this point?
No, I think the article language makes it quite clear that the committee will have a great deal of authority in going out and deciding whenever it wants to rebid the process. But I'm sure that they'll be smart enough to talk to Amy about it.
Be nice if they kept the cost down, too. So.
Yeah, although my recollection is when I looked at this budget years ago, is that there really is not a lot of increase in this budget every year for the fee that they charge.
There hasn't, and over the last 4 years, my staff and I have really taken on a lot more. They used to, I mean, when they come, we're ready, and we have schedules for them. There's, here you go, and our work is almost done once they arrive, and that makes their process more efficient. So I would like to think that one of the things I would press when we do go out to bid is, okay, start taking that into account. When the fees were set last time, you didn't have that history with, you know, with us doing as much as we are now, and hopefully in that bid process, I think some of it, I'm not saying it would make it go down, but maybe not a significant increase, I would hope. But no guarantees, obviously, but we do a lot of the stuff up front. Makes it much more streamlined for their staff also, if there's very little adjustments, you know. We haven't had audit adjustments, because the books are pretty clean when they get here.
Yeah, no, if they don't have to tear their hair out wondering how you got to a certain point, then they're happier and it's much smoother. Great. Personnel is next. And that's Michael's. Okay, so when I first came across this budget several years ago, I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And then I realized that essentially it's a budget for a half person. And then the question always was, really? I don't know what the heck the personnel board does, but really, you're putting half your time into this situation. And maybe that's true. Earlier Anne Marie mentioned that she only gets you for 18 hours. So I guess the other 18 hours, no, that doesn't add up quite right. But anyway, the other half of your job is with the personnel board. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's the big question that people have on the warrant committee when they look at this, especially newcomers. You know, what is this department? What are we doing here? And why shouldn't it be rolled into some other budget, or why, you know, anyway. Take it away.
Sure, I think historically, and Anne Marie can correct me, where this position was really a dual role, was kept separate to break that out, the responsibilities. Certainly, I would say at least half my time is spent on personnel issues. So when I say personnel, a lot of that is directly with the personnel board. So that's meeting monthly, and setting their agendas, packets, running their meeting correspondence, but all other personnel issues as well. Dealing with employees, now taking on the health insurance piece as well. So as Anne Marie mentioned, her goal, and I share that goal, is really to have my position become more of a true HR position. Previously, as my position Morse, HR was really just catch as catch can. It's just the way it was kind of formalized, for example, a new employee meets with me as the HR representative, previously would meet with the assistant treasurer for health insurance, the payroll person for their direct deposit and OBRA issues, would still continue to meet with the retirement board person. So it was really spread out, and so the idea to bring it under one umbrella as much as possible. So it really does encompass half, and it will continue to grow now that I've taken on the health insurance piece. Just for about a week and a half I've had that, so.
So I still don't understand, after all these years, why this just can't be part of the, why it just can't be part of the selectmen's budget, and you would be the assistant town administrator for human resources. And I mean, yes, the personnel board needs to be supported by you, but that's, I don't know that it would have to be financially determined that way, I mean, are any of these expenses actually for your office or for the personnel board?
Personnel board, yeah.
Okay.
So these would be personnel-specific memberships, Massachusetts Personnel Association, the postage and meeting expenses relative to personnel, professional services relating to personnel as well. So this is all strictly personnel functions and costs.
Okay. And I mean, just,
The personnel board, if I can just elaborate
Sure.
on Michael's role, having done it for a little bit. The personnel board is a separate volunteer board, and they're charged under Chapter 13 with, they are the keepers of the classification plan and the salary structure. And no employee in the town of Milton, on the town side, not including the schools, the town side can start work or draw a paycheck without approval of the personnel board. Any person that's looking for reclassifications, they have to go through the personnel board. The first step in the budget process every year is the preliminary salary sheets go out to all department heads to be completed. And any department that is looking to increase hours of a position, create a new position, reorganize, they have to submit a preliminary salary sheet that's status quo and a preliminary salary sheet with those changes. Those changes have to then be approved by the personnel board. Michael has to keep updated policies and procedures. My hope, again, with this one-stop office for personnel is for Michael to be able to devote more time to running training programs for our department heads that will help them to deal with their employees and personnel issues, thereby hopefully preventing any grievances or any investigations. So his role for the personnel board is more than just attending a meeting a month. He has to do salary surveys. He has to he does organizational charts with comparisons to other towns. So there's a whole host of duties that the personnel board require Michael to do. They're looking now to update a town employee handbook. They're looking because that's something that we have never been able to get to the point of being able to do. So I'm hoping now with the changes in the department that Michael will have time to do that. We are looking to have again, a one-stop shopping with a checklist for Michael to create so that a new employee doesn't have to go to a number of different departments. They come to the personnel department and they complete their forms there. They get their health insurance forms there. They schedule their pre-employment physicals if one is warranted. Michael does all the queries. So there's a lot more that goes into wearing his personnel board hat than just attending a meeting, setting up an agenda, and breaking down a meeting.
No, I understand that, I just don't, I guess I'm being thick, I just don't understand why,
Well, because they're a separate board, they're not under the Board of Selectmen, the personnel board's a separate board. So, it's the way it's been,
So-
he supplies support to the personnel board.
But is this really a workable arrangement? I mean, does the personnel board have total autonomy from the rest of the town? Even though you're working in two offices, you're working for the selectmen and you're working for the personnel board.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to keep those
Two hats?
responsibilities separate?
Mhm.
Okay. I would find that difficult to do, but,
Well, I mean, I think it is
Yeah, it-
difficult, I mean, but, you know, some of the duties are more clearly defined for Selectmen's Office or Personnel Board. There certainly is some overlap, you know, but they certainly are separate and distinct, the majority of the responsibilities.
well, good luck with it. Any questions? No? Okay, so now we'll get to the budget I think you ought to be in, but that's the selectmen's budget.
Yeah.
Um,
I think in the narrative, I outlined the personnel changes with respect to the reorganization plan. Showed you the status quo and what the reorg represents. There is one time in the salary and wage sheet, there is a one-time amount in there for a sick leave buyback for a person that is retiring this year.
Right, and that's part of, there are about four of those sick leave buybacks this year.
Yes.
I think there were 2 last year and 0 the 2 years before that. Anyway, I understand that for new hires, that's not a provision any longer.
That is correct.
Thank you. So, yeah, no, I think this is, part of the narrative shows that your budget is, as a consequence of the reorganization, we're saving about $3,500 in your budget.
Mhm.
In actually the central business office, I think we might be spending about $6,800 more. Not in the treasurers, I think it goes down, and I'm not sure, and the DPW would be even, so.
Mhm. Yes.
So it's all pretty, you know, as an aggregate, it's pretty.
Revenue neutral.
Revenue
Pretty
neutral.
revenue neutral.
And because you have younger folks coming in at lower steps, you have higher levels but lower steps.
That's correct.
I think and the result is that you have positions that will cost more down the road, but for the moment, you're setting yourself up for greater expertise. So.
Inefficiencies, absolutely.
So, I know people had some questions for you, and I know one of them was, gee, last year there was a $50,000 IT study sitting in your budget, and where do we stand with that?
I can give you an update on that. The town did go out to RFP for an IT strategic study. We received one bidder for that study. That one bidder was our current consultant. So we did not feel that that was a direction that we wanted to move in. Then it came to our attention that the Town Government Study Committee was looking at reconstituting the IT committee. And there's an article in this year's annual town meeting warrant to do just that, to create an IT study committee. It's a 5-member board, 3 members appointed by the moderator, 1 appointed by the selectmen, and 1 appointed by the schools, I believe. So our thought was to not move forward with the IT study. When we first talked about this last year, I did approach the IT director. I gave him the parameters of what we were looking for in the strategic study. He went out and spoke with some consultants about what they felt the cost of a study like that would be. And he got the figure of about $50,000. Since that time, we have consulted with other towns, because we had sent out, I think, a total of, we advertised the RFP, and then I think 7 packets were sent out to potential bidders. And we were concerned why we only got 1 bid back. So we reached out to some other communities that we knew were also in the throes of doing a strategic study. And they were telling us that they had funded between $100,000 and $125,000 for their studies. So at that point, we decided to take a step back to see where this new IT committee, the direction that it moves in, maybe this money's, this $50,000 that's sitting in our budget this year can be repurposed, reconstituted towards something else in fiscal year 16.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I'm basically not happy to hear that the 50,000 went nowhere, because that was a huge priority for the Board of Selectmen and the school committee last year, and the Warrant Committee was prevailed upon again and again to fund that, and perhaps it was against our better judgment to do that because it hadn't been sufficiently backed up at the time. But it hasn't been frittered away, and it will perhaps get repurposed. So that's great. Anyway, it was an odd thing where the study, the request for the study was embedded in a regular operational budget instead of having its own article. So it went through pretty easily. But anyway, so any questions on this budget? Do you want to look at in any greater detail as to who's doing what upstairs? That would
Ted,
be.
if I could just follow up on your comment.
Sure.
I think the town Board of Selectmen, and I think the Town Government Study Committee is still where the recommendation originated from. I think they're still committed to wanting and needing that strategic study, but I think that it was not prudent to go back out a second time for an RFP when we did some further research and found out that other towns were funding their IT study at twice what we were funding ours at.
Oh, no, I agree with what you did,
But I
having gained that knowledge. I just wish that you had gained that knowledge before you threw it into your budget at 50,000 as an underfunded item.
Well, I thought that I had that number when
Right.
I put it in last
Right.
year.
No.
But I just want to go on record as the Board of Selectmen and I believe the Town Government Study Committee are still committed to wanting that study performed.
Well, it would be valuable to the town, I'm sure, and it just
Absolutely.
looks like it's gonna cost more than we thought it would. Steve? All set? Okay.
I got a question.
Sure, Mike.
My question comes from working for a big health insurance company that has 19 states plans. They do Medicaid insurance for different states. And their whole strategy is to have a very centralized IT, this infrastructure. So the mothership has all the IT, and these different companies in these different states are customers of this central thing. And it's kind of like, I guess, regionalizing garbage collection, or if you have some kind of a service that you could probably say, you know, what the IT needs of a town are very much like the IT needs of another town, then maybe, you know, could we
Regionalize.
piggyback on these other studies that cost $125,000 that these other towns are? Could we subscribe to all the studies and, you know, read them and see, you know, this is a pretty good idea. We'll do this, thank you. Yeah. We'll buy this
Reach out to the
software,
other
we'll
towns,
buy
yeah.
these servers, we'll buy. So my question is there any kind of leverage we could get from the other studies that have already been done? Or is that?
I would have to see what they were looking for from their study, what the criteria was in their RFP. And we can certainly do that. We can follow up with those towns that we've spoken to.
Okay. Thanks.
I think it'd be a great idea. So when we look at your budget, there are 3 vacancies listed on it.
Right.
And so I thought maybe you might want to tell us that fortunately, one of them is no longer vacant.
One of them is no longer vacant. We do have an assistant town planner on board, has been on board for a while now, really immersing himself in the planning, reading all of the zoning requirements and building requirements. He's a great addition to the team.
Good.
So we are down to 2 vacancies, and as I had said earlier, they have been advertised, the deadline has passed. We are in the process of culling those resumes now, and I'm optimistic that we will have someone in those positions by mid-March.
So I don't remember what your advertising budget is. Do you have enough in this year's advertising budget to cover advertising for those positions?
Just said that, it's past the time period, so they just do resumes, you know. No more advertising for those positions.
Right.
You said there's no more advertising for those positions now, it's just what you have is what you have? Because the, period for taking resumes is over for those 2 positions?
That's correct, it's already been advertised.
Yeah, so it's already been done, so.
Yeah, but has the advertising been paid for?
Yes.
So you're not coming to us for,
I'm not going to be coming looking for a reserve fund transfer, no.
great. Just checking.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You know. I think probably the Board of Health might come to us, and, you know, because they have that much for an advertising budget. And, you know, in 14, you only used half of it, so, you know, you have a reasonably healthy budget. Does anybody, I mean, there's not a whole lot here, but one of the questions we did have was about training. So you've put your training under contractual amounts, I think, the education.
No, that's a collective bargaining contractual obligation. In the collective bargaining agreement, I have to hold a certain amount of money aside for management union and clerical union employees that go to school.
Oh,
It's a reimbursement.
it's a reimbursement program, and none of it was expended,
No, but I have to each
Okay.
year put it aside.
just in case.
Yes.
Great. And then the MMA is,
It's contractual
dues.
because yeah.
right. I forgot to ask Amy in her budget for training, for the CVO. I think you had 1,500 in level service and 1,000 in sort of level dollar. You would maybe need some of that for your financial analyst?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to.
Because you didn't spend any money in 14 on training.
I didn't have time to go.
That's
Yeah,
what I
pretty
was
much.
afraid of, like, do I go to
But-
training or do I
Get this
Yeah.
do the capital improvement planning
And I
committee?
have continuing professional education requirements that I
Requirements,
have to
right.
meet, so I'm using it this year, and I'll have to continue it. And yes, two people in my office have already expressed, with the financial analyst has expressed an interest in going to, mainly some of the, they're not really expensive, but you can go to some training through some of the local CPA firms on UMass accounting, which is the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System, which is a great training program for somebody new to kind of the municipal accounting world, as well as a refresher. I've gone to it almost every year I go, because you always learn something new, focus on something different. So I would use that for the assistant town accountant, because I'm encouraging her also to go to some of the same programs.
So is your budget sufficient?
Yeah, it would be a level service.
1,500? Okay, because one of the things we do want to look at is what is it above contractual level that's most important to you? And it sounds to me like that training piece is fairly important.
Yes, but what I put in for level, I guess I'm confused, what I put in for level service, I think I put more to them, because when my first couple of years, I had to get certified, so I attended a lot more training than I need now. Now it's more refreshers. I go to a lot of the Mass Department of Revenue training sessions, which are not as expensive, but I do go out to Amherst. I should be going to Amherst at least every other year, which is a 3-day conference. I'm going this year, so more than likely, if I go next year, I might not go overnight. I might only attend one or 2 days instead of the full 3. But there's things like that that I think the level service training budget is adequate.
Okay. Bill?
Emery, the fee for the MMA, is that a straight membership fee?
Yes.
And what does that entitle us to?
That entitles the Board of Selectmen to attend Board of Selectmen training seminars. We go to the MMA conference, which we just attended in January 23rd and 24th, I believe it was.
Does it give you access to the salary surveys that they do?
Yes.
Do you use those?
Yep.
And is there any
And that,
consulting capability that they offer, or research capability in terms of just polling other communities and giving you information on things? If you're looking for information like that?
they have consultants on staff that you can speak to about certain ideas you have, and
Right.
whether or not they have any any knowledge of other towns that have done it, and what they think about it. The MMA is also coupled with the MMPA, and that's where the salary surveys are, that's where all that information is, and we now are online under Michael's MMPA membership we input all of our salaries as well onto their website.
I was gonna ask that.
Yes,
Because
it's on.
why should they give you information if you're not gonna give them
Yeah,
information?
no, we do
Right.
the same, so, yeah.
Okay.
So, you don't have a training item here for the selectmen. You do have an all other, which is a nice change from miscellaneous. But what is all other? Because you spent more on all other than you meant to in 14.
We spent, I'll give you- I don't think I brought the breakdown.
You spent 12,000.
Yeah, I didn't bring the breakdown.
Budget was
on it.
8,400. Yeah, I mean, it's your miscellaneous category. I'm just kind of wondering, what is a Board of Selectmen miscellaneous? Oh,
It's unexpected, expenses that come in through the year. If I need to, use a consultant, for the cable contract renewal, I may pay for it under that, all other account. It's, I think, unfortunately, I don't know why, but I don't have the page with me that breaks it down. So I'll have to get back to you on just what I spent last year on all other. It should have
Well-
been another page here.
It's no big deal. But if you have that page, that'd be
I'll
interesting.
get it to you. Unfortunately, I don't know why.
I'm just
Yeah.
concerned that you will have 2 new hires.
Mhm.
I don't know if, well, actually, you'll have 3. I don't know if the assistant town planner should be going to training, or I don't know if your new licensing agent should be getting some training.
The licensing agent will get training on the liquor licenses, but they will go right into the ABCC. They hold training seminars,
Oh.
and they are free. So that person will be going in there, free of charge.
Like free. So maybe there's room in all other for
Yes.
training requirements?
I'm
if
sorry, I don't
you
have the
discover that-
breakdown, so it's just,
Okay.
it's escaping me what I
No,
paid
that's-
last year for it.
Well, yeah, but you didn't have anybody who needed training last year,
No.
and you have 3 people now, so I hope that covers it.
Mhm. I can get back to you on that one.
Any other questions on the selectmen's budget?
One question.
No?
Actually, it's not on selection budget, but more on the assistant town planner. Just a quick question, because that is the new position. What is the assistant town planner's marching orders right now? I know we had a big backlog and stuff. Do we have him on track as far as this is your marching orders for right now to get us caught up, or is he segmented into a particular? Okay, you're going to be out 40. What is
He
his?
works under the direction of the Director of Planning and Community Development. I believe he's going to be in tomorrow night. So that's probably a question that he could answer better than I could, because he really doesn't even work in my office. They work across the hall. And
Right.
again, he works under the directors, so the director kind of sets his schedule.
Yeah, that's another budget that's kind of wacky, because there's a planning board budget, kind of mirrors the personnel board budget, and you have somebody and some expenses outside of sort of the normal chain of command, and I don't know.
Well, your Director of Planning and Community Development and your Assistant Town Planner actually work for the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Their directive is from the Board of Selectmen. They supply expertise and consultation to the planning board. The planning board's budget has one senior admin clerk in it that just supplies clerical support to the planning board. So that's why they're separated out.
But I believe she also, I believe the planning director and the assistant town planner are hopeful that her hours might be increased so that she can support their work more. So then it becomes, wait a minute, who's working for who? And
Yeah, it's kind of gray, because sometimes the duties kind of cross over between the two boards, so.
So, but we'll deal with that tomorrow. Okay. All right, so town reports. This is gonna take hours, I know.
It's a small budget, contractual budget.
Oh,
We print about 400 annual reports a year. They're sent out to town meeting members. We send give copies to department heads, library. We put it up on, electronically on the town's website. It's a guesstimate each year how much it's gonna cost. It is, it always is under the $6,300 figure, but you just never know how large the report, the book is gonna be. It depends on how much information each department puts into their annual report. So,
Lee Michael.
If we have 2 town meetings now, why do we only have 1 line for an annual town meeting report?
the annual report, it encompasses all of the town meetings in it. It's the big thick book. I think you're thinking of the
So
warrants.
For the fall meeting, okay, all right.
You're thinking of the
The
warrants.
yeah.
So we have an annual town meeting warrant, and then we have a warrant for the fall town meeting.
Okay,
And you'll notice that in this budget, in fiscal year 14, the annual town meeting warrant was put under town reports.
right,
But we discussed last year that it really should be moved into the selectmen's E&R budget, because that's where the fall
and
town
that's where the
meeting
fall
warrant.
one is, okay,
And, yeah, so
All right.
they should really all be in the same budget.
okay, thanks.
That's why I skipped the selectmen's E and R, and we'll go back to it, now that we know one of the crucial ingredients in it. So, yeah, the annual report is, it's got more stuff in there than I knew. It's a great publication, and it's really nice to have the printed copy. Are any left upstairs?
Yes, there are.
So if anybody on the committee would like one, that'd be great. Steve?
The number that you print, is that for all of the town meeting members?